Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. I'm Falasha from BiteMyFashion.com, and today I'm talking to you all about baby toys. Well, one specific baby toy, and let me tell you, this is conspiracy level. Like, what? I did not know this toy was illegal. So you might be wondering, what are you talking about? Let's get into it. So, as many of you know, I am a public health professional, which means pretty much for a living, I read medical journals. I read research into public health issues, and I've done everything from breast cancer to tobacco research and things to that nature. Anything that can pose as a threat to the public or a public health issue to the public. So, when I became pregnant, everything became an interest around maternity and health, and that's pretty much how this channel has grown to be what it is. It's a space where I can share both of my passions, motherhood and just spreading information about public health, because let's be honest, everybody doesn't have time or can read medical journals just for the heck of it. So when I found out that there has been research, let me tell you, like legit studies, papers, and the all type, I will list everything below, but there's been extensive research into the dangers of using baby walkers, and I had no idea. Not only did I have no idea, I happily had my son rolling around in a baby walker with, unbeknownst to me, just no care in the world. So I'm gonna break it down for you so you can know the pros and cons of baby walkers and can make an informed decision, because that's what it comes down to, being able to make a decision even if you know the dangers and everything to that nature, because we just assume that they're safe because they're sold in the stores and they're so readily used, but they're actually illegal. They're illegal in Canada. And I mean, maybe you don't live in Canada, so they're not illegal where you live, but like in Canada, it's a huge thing. It comes with a $100,000 fine. Like, do you hear me? And I had to do even more research and kind of see, well, okay, do they have high fines in Canada? Because you know, if you're in the US and you see like the Canadian dollar on the back of a book versus the US dollar, everything looks like it's mad expensive in Canada or with the Canadian dollar. And the fine for marijuana. So if you're caught in possession of marijuana, it's like the first time, if it's a misdemeanor and it's a small amount, is like 1,000 Canadian dollars. The second time, or if it's a felony, is like at most I think 2,000 Canadian dollars. So that just puts it into perception of like how serious they are about baby walkers. $100,000 if you're caught in possession of a baby walker, and they will stop you at the border. They are looking for baby walkers at the border. Is that real? So, if a country is willing to actually put in enforcement and regulation over an item that is used for children, that means it poses a serious risk, in my opinion, because it's not cheap to put in these enforcements. There's a lot of laws and regulations that are not enforced, but from what I read, it's actually enforced in Canada. And there are movements in the UK as well as in the US to make them completely illegal. So, why? That was my question. Why are they so dangerous? Like, what did I just give myself? I'm gonna go over regulations and rules, as well as some information that I found online and how I found it, if you're interested in finding more journal articles, and some of the perceptions, like myths that we think are true about baby walkers that are not. So I'm just gonna let you guys know from the beginning, I did give my son a baby walker and I thought it was the best thing in the world, if that makes sense. So one day my husband kind of said to me, oh, well, you know, my mother-in-law, mother-in-laws was like, oh, you want to be careful using the baby walker. You don't want to use it too often. And I thought she was discussing, and I believe she was bringing up the point of like hip issues, and how if you have the baby kind of hanging in that position, it can cause issues with the hip and da 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 da. As I showed you guys before, I use baby carriers, and I know they do a lot of research on how the baby's hips develop if they're using a certain type of carrier, and some of them are dangerous and some of them are perfectly safe. So I figured that the same precautions were taken with the baby walkers, and it just kind of interested me into doing some more research and to see if there was a recommended time allotment. So like, don't leave your baby in a walker for more than 30 minutes per day or something like this. In my research, I found that they actually don't recommend that you use walkers at all. So that is the first case I want to bring up. Walkers are considered dangerous because at the rate which a baby can move. So like I said, my son was not mobile when we started using the walker. So he wasn't really crawling much. I think he could like get up, but he couldn't move. And he really would get frustrated because he wanted to be able to crawl. He wanted to stand all the time. And I just couldn't hold him all day. So the walker kind of answered that question as to how to keep a baby upright. But the problem is once they can kind of paddle and move in the walker, they do not have the understanding of, oh, that's hot, oh, that's dangerous, oh, that's a cliff. And they move through these things at a rate which it said over 80% of the time, the parents are there. So these are not children you can say to yourself, oh, well, it's fine. Those parents are reckless. They're not watching their child. No, these are people who are, or at least say in the admission to the hospital that they did have sight of their child, but at the rate a baby can move 3 times faster than they would if they were just like, crawling or walking themselves. So imagine if you see it, that's parenthood, right? You see something like, oh, snap, that's about to fall, and you're reacting. Your reaction time is not fast enough to save the baby from falling down the stairs or knocking over a hot tea or anything like that. So this is where a lot of the dangers come into place. They have made regulations to change some things with walkers. Like now they're supposed to be wide enough to not fit through doorways. But I believe my son's walker does fit through our doorway, and I'll do a little test to see. But they're not supposed to fit readily through doorways. So that way it prevents, if the baby's in one room, from leaving that room and like entering a hallway or a stairwell or something like that. So another huge risk with baby walkers is that there are no identifiable benefits of use. So when I first got it and I saw how my son was starting to interact with the music and move about, I thought this must be really good for his development and his motor skills. These are assumptions that the manufacturer really wants you to make. Like, oh, my baby's moving, so this must help motor skills. And it's actually the opposite. It has been shown through research that children who are using walkers are actually developing later in their walking skills. Not saying that that will happen to every child. My son started walking at exactly 12 months on his birthday. But this is what the research shows, that it will actually hinder development in motor, and it gives them a false sense of movement so that they think that they're already moving, so they don't try as hard to learn how to walk. And that was a research paper that I read, and I thought that was mind-boggling, because everything that you assume about walkers just because of their popularity and their ease of access, if you're not in Canada, the access to get them at Walmart, Target, wherever, you would think, hey, they must be safe and they must provide some type of benefit. This is kind of a scary idea that the walker does not actually provide any benefit to your child. So if you are buying a walker, knowing this information, it does make it seem like it's a bit in the interest of the parent more so than the child, because you could actually hinder their development in walking, as well as the posed risk that come along with using a walker. The AAP collected 5,852 reviews rating baby walkers from 1 to 5 stars on top websites including Amazon.com, Babies R Us, Walmart, Target, and Diapers.com. And what they found was really eye-opening, that people actually respond negatively to the warning that baby walkers are dangerous. So people just don't want to hear it. And I get it. I really do, because like I said, I used the baby walker, and even after I did a bit of research, I was still convinced that my son would not have an injury due to a baby walker. And I mean, I was more vigilant, and I really put a cap on how much time he was allowed to be in the walker per day, because after I found that out, I was like, well, what about the hip and dysplasia, or, growing hip issues or anything like this, as well as it kind of was just a red flag. Like, it just seemed kind of off the chart that nobody was really flagging this for people, or it wasn't a discussion within the community. It has been reported that a baby can move 4 feet in 1 second using a walker. That is not enough time for a parent to respond. However, a lot of these issues have been combated since 1995 through voluntary measures through companies that produce walkers. They have created, like I said, the wider walkers so they don't easily fit through doorways. That would be 36 inches. So if your doorway is wider than that, or if you live in a handicap accessible home, or just have big beautiful doorways, that's not going to serve much of a purpose for you. The best option would be to use a stationary walker, so one that just kind of sits the child upright and does not move, without wheels, or some other type of play station that is not with wheels. If this was interesting to you, if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking, because I was shocked. I was like, this is conspiracy level madness, because the industry is making so much money off of these walkers. The only regulations I have seen was regarding voluntary ones outside of Canada, and this has been a problem affecting the entire world. So no one is immune to the injury of walkers, and outside of injuries, the fact that this can actually delay motor development is really concerning, because you can't really measure if your child possibly would have had earlier motor development skills, or has been stifled by it. If you have a suggestion for a great stationary PlayStation, I'd love to see it below, and let me know what you think. Peace.